Time for another cooking challenge video. Very much in the vein of the last one, which was just buy the cheapest things. If you've seen the thumbnail, obviously you've seen that this one's a little bit different. This one's buy the cheap-ish things. So I'm going to go shopping. I'm going to buy in each of the same 8 categories, but a little bit more refined this time. I'm going to buy kind of the cheapest thing I can find, trying not to repeat the things I bought in the last video, but also I needed to tinker a little bit with these rules just because they didn't work very well last time. And I'll tell you why as I go. One of the categories is going to be fresh, unprocessed, raw meat. I just said meat or fish last time, and that ended up being the cheapest meat item was pate, but really, is pate an item of meat or is it a meat product? The meat content was only like 40%, but then sausages have got 42% and you wouldn't argue about them being meat. And so anyway, I'm going to restrict it this time down to fresh, unprocessed, raw meat. Same thing for cheese, cheapest unprocessed cheese I can find. So not a cheese product, not a processed cheese, not a cheese spread, but some cheese. Fresh fruit, fresh green vegetables and a fresh non-leafy vegetable. This is where I really ran into problems last time because of the pricing structure in supermarkets. I had gone with the intention of buying the cheapest per kilo. Unfortunately, the produce in supermarkets is not all priced per kilo. Some of it's priced per item, some of it's priced per pack, which is multiple items. And for the items that are sold by count, there is no price per weight calculation shown on the shelf edge. And so, short of me actually weighing and fiddling around with everything in the supermarket, which would take all day, there isn't a very easy way to determine whether one lemon, sold as one lemon, is better value than 500 grams of, say, apples or grapes or whatever. Anyway, so the objective is just going to be to find the cheap-ish, best value, looks like best value item. The cheapest canned or tinned item I can find, the cheapest glass jar of something I can find, and the cheapest bakery item or the best value bakery item. Again, the tiny little single roll turned out to be cheaper than the cheapest pack of bread stuff in the last exercise, but it wasn't better value. On top of the shopping items, of course, there is going to be a small allowance of 1 spice, 1 herb, and 1 sauce from the kitchen, 1 tablespoon of oil or fat, and I think we'll say salt, and obviously tap water. So we're going to be a little bit looser with the rules, and I'm going to use my discretion. Let's go shopping. Okay, back from the shopping, and that was interesting. Here be the haul, mateys. A bag of carrots. This is a kilo of carrots, including some nice girthy carrots, which I like. That costs 45 pence. A bunch of celery, 57 pence. A lot of people don't like celery, but I do. A bag of 6 Braeburn apples, small ones, 99 pence. A 200-gram pack of mild cheddar slices, £1.39. There was mozzarella for less than this, but we had mozzarella last time. So we've got this. This is the cheapest actual solid cheese. A pack of 4 chicken legs. I think there's 4 in there. £2.19. I could have bought chicken wings for the same price, but there's far less meat on them. What is the net weight of this? This is, again, a 1 kilo pack. A loaf of white bread. I could have had the wholemeal, but I feel like the white bread is a little bit more versatile for some of the things I might have in mind. This was 45 pence. A jar of strawberry jam, which is 35 grams of fruit per 100 grams. Total sugar content, 61 grams per 100 grams. So mostly sugar, but 39 pence. Now, sweetness is one of the things that we often struggle with on these videos, so we're not going to be in trouble for that this time. And a tin of spaghetti rings in tomato sauce for 19 pence. I did deliberate about buying other things in cans, but I thought we'd give these a go and see if we can actually make something interesting out of them. I normally look down my nose a little bit at these things because they're not an alternative to beans, and culinarily they kind of are. Nutritionally, they're kind of not. They're not as high in proteins and fibre and stuff as a tin of beans would be. Anyway, we got a tin of spaghetti rings. That is the haul, and tomorrow we've got to make 3 meals out of that. But do you know what? There is actually such a lot of food here, I think I'm going to spin this for 2 days. I think I'm going to try and get 2 days worth of meals out of this. So 6 different meals, if I can, or 6 kind of different meals. And to make that a little bit more achievable, I'm going to say foraging is in. I mean, it's the end of January, so that's still going to be a struggle. I don't know what's out there in terms of foraging. Might be able to find some little dandelion leaves or maybe a bit of watercress or something like that. And, of course, where it's 2 days, the spice, herb and sauce allowance will be per day. So on day 1, I'll get spice, herb and sauce. On day 2, I think we'll say a different spice, herb and sauce. So anyway, this is going to be a 2-part video now. Okay, I have a plan. Breakfast on day 1 is not going to be anything elaborate because that just gives me a bit of breathing space to get everything else organised. So it's just going to be a couple of slices of toast with butter and jam. So in a way, I regret not buying the wholemeal bread because I do prefer wholemeal toast. But, as I say, I feel like wholemeal bread for some of the things I want to make is not quite so versatile. So anyway, a couple of slices of this white bread. It's perfectly good bread. So amongst my allowances, I've got a tablespoonful of fat or oil, and it's going to be butter today. So I'm not quite sure how I'm going to measure a tablespoonful of butter. This is hard straight out of the fridge. So I think there might need to be a tiny bit of approximation here, but I will try and be as honest and decent as I can about it. I would say, actually that's probably a bit less than a tablespoonful there. I'm not going to melt it to try and get it in there. So that is about a tablespoonful of butter. But I'm not putting all of that on this toast, so I will reserve about half of that. I also got one of my apples. I'm just going to cut that up and have some apple wedges with it. Now, I always like to tent my toast like that for just about 30 seconds or so to let the steam leave, so that when I lay it down flat to butter it, it doesn't go all soggy underneath. Just going to put that butter on there to warm. Right, this strawberry jam. This is Stamford Street is Sainsbury's kind of budget in-store brand. Yeah, it's very much it's more like jelly really. I think that'll probably do. There's no kind of visible chunks of fruit in there. Okay, this apple, well, just to make it a little bit more presentable, I'll cut the core out. I might not throw those core pieces away because I'll maybe think of something to do with them. Right, well, that's breakfast. And I don't really expect any surprises here. Although, of course, that is the nature of surprises. Yeah. This bread, the very, very cheap white bread like this, tends to be a little bit on the dry side, but it makes very good toast. Obviously not very much effort in putting that all together. And for this video series, this is a bit of a normal breakfast. But yeah, that'll do to get me started today. The jam, for all it being cheap and mostly sugar, does actually have a nice strawberry flavour. It's a lot like the jam you get in those little pots in hotels, you know, the little plastic tubs with peel-off lids. It's cheap jam, but it's better than no jam. And actually the combination of the rather sweet jam and the nice tart, crisp Braeburn apple. Braeburn's a fairly hard variety of apple, hard and crisp, kind of on the acid side, but with good apple flavour. It's a good combo. Now there is toast, or there was, and whenever toast is eaten, a tax must be paid. Sit. Good girl. Right, want to get a head start on lunch and start cooking this chicken, or most of it, and some other bits and pieces. I have got a plan here actually. Sat down and wrote a detailed plan for both days last night. I'll share more about this later. Anyway, so gonna bake this chicken, well, roast it or whatever. My spice for today is going to be garlic granules. So that's my spice allowance. Some of this celery, I'll take these big outer stalks off. And I'm gonna obviously wash and prepare those and put them underneath the chicken when I roast it, because that will keep the chicken up off the bottom of the pan, but also all the flavour will cook into this. And likewise, we're going to have some carrots underneath there. Oh look, there's one. There's a person carrot. Yeah, I think maybe 3 carrots. So everything that comes off of these celery and carrots is going to go in this little box here to make stock. I put the apple core pieces in there as well. I've never put apple cores in a mix to make stock before, but there's a first time for everything. So yeah, the celery, I'm going to just chop it up into little pieces. I really like cooked celery. I know a lot of people don't. I find that when it's cooked, it's got a really deep kind of savouriness to it. Now all of this is going to go in the bottom of a large roasting pan. Same deal with the carrots. All the peelings will go in this box here, which when I've got the bones out of the chicken, after cooking it, will make stock for soup or something later. And also top and tail of the carrot as well can go in there. Now, carrots I think are going to get diced because if we maximise surface area, that's going to maximise flavour. So all of that in there as well. Okay, and we're not done. Since I have apples, I'm just going to bake an apple in there as well. I think what I will do is I'll keep that out of the way of the chicken, so I'll stick it in the corner. But I don't mind if that apple gets some savoury flavour on it actually, because we might think of something to do with it later. This is not really part of the plan, at least I don't know exactly what I'm going to do with it yet. Now these chicken legs, I'm going to put them on there upside down. I've got 5 of them in there, how about that? I thought there were 4 in the pack, but there's 5. Okay, so I'm going to put 4 of them in there for now, and this is where I'm going to have some of my garlic granules. And I want this on the underside of the chicken, because I don't want it to burn. So I'm going to put this on the underside of the meat, where it will cook into the meat, and hopefully the vegetables too. So that was only about half a teaspoonful. Now with this other chicken leg, I'm going to actually just reserve some of the thigh meat here because I've got a different plan for that for tomorrow. So I'm going to debone this thigh kind of in situ actually, just cut either side of the bone there. Easier to do if you joint the chicken actually, but I can't be bothered. I'm just going to take off that bit of chicken thigh meat because I've got a different plan for that for tomorrow. That, I'll put it back, you can't see the joint. I'll put that in the roasting pan with the rest of it actually. I'll put a little bit of garlic on that and then off we go. Actually now I think about it, my plan might require a little bit more chicken than that, so I think I will just do the same with just one more of the thighs here. Don't need to be particularly neat and tidy about this because my plan for using this doesn't need it to be intact. So that bit's going to go back in the fridge. This bit's going to get a little sprinkle of garlic, and then that goes back in the pan with the other bits of chicken. So that's now going to go all in the oven at 180 degrees Celsius for probably about an hour and a half. The chicken's sitting on top of the vegetables, so the fat will render out of the chicken and will stop these vegetables from burning on the bottom of the pan. And hopefully should impart some flavour into those vegetables as well, because obviously I'm not going to throw those away. Those are going to be used in something else later. Oh, there is of course going to be a little bit of salt on top of the chicken, just on the skin. Just rub that in. Okay, how about a little experiment? So I've got plenty of apples. I've actually got quite a bit of cheese. I fancy making something that might be like a kind of pastry or a tart or something like that. So I've got these little pie dishes. I've got some butter left over. And so first thing I'm going to do is just get that butter nicely spread around these dishes, which I'm going to use my fingers for because I want it to be liberally spread. Okay, so there's one. Still got a little bit of butter left. Now, I haven't got any pastry. I haven't got any flour to make pastry. I've got some bread. That might be all right, mightn't it? So, a couple of slices of bread. I will trim the crusts off. And I will keep the crusts because we need some breadcrumbs for a thing I'm planning tomorrow. I will press that down into there. Obviously not pastry, it's bread. I'll use a third dish for that, I think. We'll just press that down into place. Yeah, that looks good. Okay, but what we're going to put in here? So I'm thinking a bit of cheese. I'm actually tempted to just lay that straight on there like that. I think I will. A whole slice of cheese in each one, and I'm offsetting it from the other bits because I want these little bits here to toast up. So we've got some mild cheddar cheese in there, and cheese goes with fruit. There's going to be quite a lot of apple peels and stuff in that stock box, which might be interesting, but maybe we'll discover that apples are amazing in chicken stock, or maybe we won't. And this one I'm going to peel. They say that if you manage to peel an apple in one go without breaking it like that and toss the peel over your shoulder, it will land on the floor in the form of the initials of the person you truly love. I'd have thought it'd just be easier just to think about who you truly love, but never mind. Now I want this cut fairly small, and then I'm going to slice these really thin and arrange a layer of apple pieces in there. When I say arrange, I mean toss in unceremoniously. And then, because it will need some sweetness, and we have jam, that's going to be topped with a fairly generous blob of strawberry jam in each one. That might be too much though. Now that will melt in the oven, and it will flow down and hopefully coat the other things. So I'm going to put those in the oven for maybe about 20 minutes or something like that. And I'll just keep an eye on them because I don't want anything to burn here. 20 minutes at the top of the oven, and these little tarts look like that. The jam hasn't melted as much as I thought it would actually. Everything else is baked, the cheese is crisped up, the bread is crisped up. So I'm just going to spread that around a little bit like that. So it's more like a glaze on top. Anyway, not even going to touch these now until they cool down. And I'm not going to lick that spoon because fruity napalm. Right, that has, in some sense of the word, worked. So I got those out of the dishes. They came out very easily. The butter, and this is a non-stick dish anyway. I think it's a kind of qualified success. There are a few little soggy spots where the apple juice has kind of leaked through, but a definite crust on there. And we've even got a little bit of a kind of cheese tweel on the edge there, which is, you know, chefy. Anyway, not even going to attempt to bite into these until they've cooled down a bit. Right, that chicken's been in the oven just over an hour now, and we've got some nice crispy skin, although I think it could probably do with a bit more colour. That apple, which you can't see down here, so I'll show you, that apple is going to come out now because that's fully cooked, completely baked apple there. It has been sitting in the chicken juices, so it's going to be a kind of sweet and savoury apple. I don't know what I'm going to do with that yet. I planned to bake it, but I didn't have a plan for what I'm going to use it for, so I'll figure something out. I think what I'll do is just baste the chicken. I think it could do with another probably half hour. So I will just Pick up these juices, baste this chicken all over. Now, so that this chicken doesn't just stew, I'm going to reserve these juices. So we'll take those all out of there. And now that can go back in the oven for, I think, probably another half hour. And these reserved juices from the chicken, you can already see a layer of fat separating out on the top there. So we've got the kind of juices from cooking the chicken and vegetables and the fat that's rendered out of the chicken here. I will separate these because fat is always in short supply on these kind of videos. So that chicken fat is going to find a use for some later recipe. Now, one of the benefits of being a grown-up is I can have my dessert before my main course if I want to. And I'm itching to try these apple tart things. If these already have a name, do let me know, because I don't know what these are. You know, this might already be a thing. I just made this up as I went along, but this might already be a thing. So let's do a little cross section, see what we got. So yeah, it does look a little bit bready in there. I can't even see the cheese, but it's there somewhere. Well, time for a little taste, I think. That's very good. I'm not kidding. If I was fed that blindfolded, I would believe that was a Danish pastry. Quiet, dog. You can't have this. That is amazingly good, considering how simple and basic the ingredients were and the process. The cheese, where it's actually crisped up there, is quite salty, and that just really offsets the sweetness of the jam and the sharpness of the apples. So to separate the fat from the kind of chicken juice, you can get jugs to do this, but I always just use the basting pipette for this. So I'd go right to the bottom, and that bit's definitely all juice, no fat. And I tilt it like that so that I've got a little corner down there. That is sufficiently separated for my purposes. Yep, that extra half hour was exactly what it needed. So that chicken's done. The pan's already starting to caramelize and brown everywhere. That's great. I am just going to leave this to cool now. Well, I'll take the doggo out, I think. We'll go and see if we can do a little bit of foraging. Maybe for something for tomorrow. But yeah, I'm just going to let that stand, let it cool down, because there's no point in burning myself trying to pick it apart. And I'll have lunch when I come back. This lovely chicken, I'm just going to pick this over now and get all the meat off of it. So, I'm also going to save the skin, obviously, because there's a lot of flavour and some fat in that. So, chicken's going to go in a box there, skin in a separate box, bones and gristle are going to go directly into the vessel for my pressure cooker. And the thing I like about these chicken legs, apart from the fact that they're very good value, is where it's all dark meat, it's very difficult to overcook it. So that's all done. Look how much chicken came off of there. That's off of 5 chicken legs. Well, actually kind of 4.5, because we've still got some of the thigh meat uncooked in the fridge. So lovely load of chicken there. Really good value, those chicken legs. Got some chicken skins. Most of them have gone a little bit soft now, but lots of colour and flavour on that. We can crisp that back up by just frying it in a pan or something if we need to. And of course, all of these roasted vegetables, this roasted celery and carrots, not going to go to waste. This will have absorbed a lot of the flavour of the chicken and the garlic, of course, because the garlic was on the underside. So this is kind of ready seasoned vegetables for using in some other thing, which I've got an idea for. And of course, we need to deglaze this pan, because look at that. There is flavour baked onto that. And I'm going to actually just put in that chicken juice that we separated out earlier. Well, look, it's oh, I would do, but it's set like jelly already. How about that? Wow, that's slightly surprising. Okay, I'll use a bit of water instead. Just about half a cup of water. I'm just going to let time do that. So I'm just going to sit and leave that to soak, and that will loosen up all of those things. Then I can scrape them and we can drain that into a container to save, because again, there's loads of flavour here. All of the bones are saved there in that vessel from my pressure cooker. And now the vegetable trimmings and apple cores can go in there as well. And then after lunch, I'll put this pressure cooker on and we'll make some stock. So lunch is going to be some kind of a chicken sandwich. So I'm going to steal one of the nice stalks of celery from inside this bunch. One of the more tender inside stalks. And this celery, again, end can go in the stock pot. I'm going to shred extremely fine. These leafy bits are just like a herb, so they will go in there too. So just a variation of texture. They do taste pretty much the same. And when I say go in there, I mean into this bowl for now. I've got a little bit of carrot, and this I'm going to grate. Okay. And within the allowance there is one spice, one herb, one sauce. I'm going to use tartar sauce. This is actually the remainder of the tartar sauce from the previous video. Tartar sauce is basically mayonnaise with capers and cornichons, maybe a bit of mustard. And so this is just going to be used to lightly dress this little salad thing we're making. There's also going to be some little matchsticks of apple in there. The reason for doing this last is the apple will tend to brown if it's left for any time. And I haven't got any lemon juice to put on it. So the acidity of the sauce will prevent that from browning. There we go. That's my little kind of apple and celery and carrot slaw. We're going to have, I think, 4 slices of toast or bread. I'm going to toast it on one side. My toaster has a setting for that, if I can figure it out. Well, maybe my toaster doesn't have that setting, but we can fake it because I put 2 slices in like that and only the outsides will get toasted. While that's happening, I'm just going to shred up some of this chicken. I really do like the dark meat on chicken. I'd always rather have the dark meat on chicken than chicken breast. Oh, I can really smell that garlic. I'm just thinking about how much chicken I want for 2 sandwiches. Just kind of divide it into 2 little heaps like that will help me visualise it. I want these to be fairly generous sandwiches. We've got plenty of chicken here, so I can afford to do that. And just to keep that chicken moist and tender, I'm going to dress it with some of this jelly. This is the pan juices that I kind of siphoned out. So that's just melting, and that will coat and moisten that chicken. Since we don't have any more, well, I have got a bit of butter left, but I won't be buttering the bread. There we go, toaster's just popped up. Not toasted on the inside, that's exactly what I want. I'm just going to stand those and let them steam for a second. So I did go out looking for things I might be able to forage for this, but didn't find anything while I was out and about, except when I came home I found there's a big bittercress plant in the herb patch, in one of my pots in the herb patch. So I picked a little bit of bittercress. Now, bittercress doesn't deserve the name bitter. It is a kind of cress. Anyway, let's get the chicken onto here. So yeah, didn't butter this bread. I don't always butter bread anyway, especially if I'm putting something greasy on it like bacon. But this chicken's quite moist. And toasting it on one side as well helps to keep the kind of moisture of the bread there. That slaw stuff going to go in there on top. And then this bittercress, which really does just taste like mustard or cress, just a tiny little kind of snip over the top, just for an accent. Right, let's just press those fillings down a bit and sandwich assemble. Now, the big question, do we cut diagonally? Do we cut straight across? Do we cut that way? No, we cut like that. Why? Because it'll annoy someone. Yeah, something like that. Deli chicken sandwiches. Right, time for a taste. That's a very fine sandwich. And that bittercress, even though there was just the tiniest amount of it, is there. I can taste it. It's a radishy sort of flavour. And that seasoning on the chicken with the garlic and salt, really simple, but it's actually really makes the chicken flavour shine. Yeah, really happy with that. Now you might be wondering why I'm eating standing up in the kitchen. It's just to do with the available light at this time in the middle of winter. The deglaze from this roasting pan, I've just decided I'm going to put it in with this pressure cooker when I make the stock. Otherwise I'm keeping too many different containers of leftovers. If I had a reason to keep it separate, and the reason might be because this has got a lot more garlic in it than the other thing. If I had a reason to keep that separate, I might, but I don't think I will. Right, this stock is finished, so I'm going to give it a strain now. It looks good. I shall have a little taste. It's the apple. Just interested to see if the apple's made any difference. Yeah, can't say I would notice that there's apple in that. Now lunch was quite filling, so I only really want something light for dinner. So I'm going to make some soup. I've got these vegetables. These are the vegetables that were roasted underneath the chicken. I'm just going to pick out some bits of carrot. And we'll have a bit of this stock. Now, I haven't used my herb yet today. So we got one spice, one herb, one sauce. I haven't used the herb yet. And so the herb is going to be tarragon, I think. Just a tiny little pinch of tarragon in there to rinse that out. And I do want some chunks of vegetables in there as well, so we'll have some of that celery and carrots. And I want smaller pieces. That's about right. So that's going to go into my soup. Now none of this is going to need very much cooking because these vegetables are already roasted. So this is going to be a very quick thing to put together. You may have noticed lurking in the background the spaghetti hoops. I mean, minestrone has pasta in it, doesn't it? So why not? Let's see what these are like. I mean, it's very full up actually. I expected it to be swimming with sauce, but it's actually pretty solid with pasta. Anyway, I think we'll have maybe just a couple of spoons of that in there. Let's see what that looks like. Let's see what that looks like when it's stirred in. I think maybe a little bit more. I don't want it to be just spaghetti hoops. And since I have such an abundance of chicken, I think we'll have a few little shreds of chicken in there as well, just to add a bit of protein, a bit of difference in texture. Now that's only going to need warming up, but also I want something with it, so I think I'm going to have a slice of cheese on toast. Now what about if instead of it just being cheese on toast, it had some of this crispy chicken skin? Well, it's not actually crispy at the moment, but that can be arranged. Just shred up this chicken skin into little ribbons. Cheese on the toast, perfect fit. That will go under the grill just until it melts. Once it's molten, I'll put the chicken skin on top and put it back under the grill. That should crisp up the cheese and the chicken skin. That's the theory. Okay. Cheese is melted. I feel like maybe I should have put 2 slices on there. But we can't go back now. Meanwhile, my soup is just warming through on the top. Okay. Actually, I think that looks not bad. Like I say, I only really want something light this evening because lunch was quite filling. Cheese on toast with crispy chicken skin, and it has gone crispy. There we go, chicken and vegetable soup with tarragon. Right, I think we'll go to the table with this. Well, now, I've already tasted the soup, so I think it'd be a good idea to taste this chicken skin and cheese on toast. The combination definitely works. Yeah, it's good. It's really good. And the soup's really delicious, actually. Tarragon's a sweet herb, and so those things have balanced each other quite nicely. Tarragon and celery is a very good combination. Yep, I think tarragon was the right choice. Yeah, I'm really happy with that, actually. A lot of the meals that we end up cooking on this video series end up being too much of something. And this one's really nice. It's really nicely balanced. It's really delicate. And actually it's quite a subtle flavour. And it's just very nice to have something like that on one of these challenges. Sweet earthy flavours of the carrot and the celery and the tarragon. A little background sort of warmth from the garlic that's found its way into the stock and in the chicken. The hoops, well, they are what they are. They're kind of a bit insubstantial, but they're not overpowering the dish. They're not making it taste like just spaghetti hoops. So that's the end of day 1, and I'm actually quite happy with what we did today. And that's just the end of day 1, of course. Day 2 will be a separate video because I think this one's going to be about an hour long already. Let's head back to Studio Shrimp now for the wrap up and rate those meals. Studio Shrimp here. So that went pretty well, I thought. Reflections on the shopping and challenge. Obviously the total shop was more expensive this time, and I think that probably came more from the tweaked parameters than the choice of shopping venue. Specifying fresh, unprocessed meat, for example, sets a different floor for that category. Sainsbury's definitely has a wider range of more expensive things than, say, Lidl, but since I'm looking for the cheapest things, those tend to be fairly well matched across all supermarkets. And yeah, having spent the best part of £7 on what was obviously more than one day's worth of food in volume, it's an obvious opportunity to try to make it into a 2-day mini-series. Although, to be completely open, this series isn't about the amount of food that's on the table. It's about trying to make coherent meals out of the components available. Anyway, time to rate those dishes. Breakfast, toast and jam with apple. This is just going to get a 6 out of 10. Almost zero effort, very obvious, but nice enough. Would have been nicer with some better jam and more butter and perhaps nicer bread. Lunch, deli-style chicken sandwich. I'll give this one 8 out of 10. It was very tasty. The chicken was moist and succulent. The slaw was crunchy and well-balanced and interesting. I had actually intended to put a slice of cheese in there too, but I forgot. However, I think there's a tendency to just put every ingredient into every dish, so it's probably best I left that out. Nice sandwich. Bonus dessert, fake Danish pastry. In an unprecedented move, I'm rating this one 10 out of 10. Even though the execution and the presentation could have been smarter, and outside of the challenge framework, there are things that could be done to make this even better. It still gets 10 out of 10, just because in context it was so very, very good. And also because of the huge ratio of minimal effort required versus the surprisingly enjoyable and tasty result. Dinner, chicken and vegetable loop soup. Another 8 out of 10. The spaghetti hoops were a bit nothing, although I think their sauce did contribute something to the mix. Completely happy with the combination of roasted carrot and celery with tarragon and chicken stock. That worked really well. A fairly mild tasting soup, but that made the cheese on toast with crispy chicken skin a delicious contrast. Definitely doing that again. So yeah, day 1 went pretty well, but of course that's several combinations and ideas used up now, so day 2 might be a bit more tricky. If you're watching this on the day of the release, part 2 will be this time next week. I hope this has been interesting, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.